And we are live again on another Sunday with our March Movie Madness. We're doing something a little different this week. But before we get into that, you see, I'm joined by four wonderful, beautiful people. Well, three, and JB3's here too. Um, so let's introduce them real quick. JB3, since I already said your name, we'll introduce you first. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic because I didn't write your questions for week 5 yet, and I'm excited that I get to write them after you did that.
Listen, you're a wonderful human being, and I love you.
It's been a good time. You know, my life has been consumed with wrestling for the past few weeks, whether it be trivia or all the wrestling content that's out there. So it's a nice little breath of fresh air to be able to talk about like the MCU, even though that's such a big thing, and WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, all the things, and everyone's talking about it. It's nice to just sit back, relax, and to discuss MCU today.
Indeed. And next to JB3, we got Ryan O'Regan. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me on the show. First time coming on here, and I've debated with you guys before. Obviously, hopefully we won't have to get as visceral as those days. But obviously you can tell I'm a bit of a fan. Just little kitschy things here and there, but at least I can say that we all love the stuff. I don't think there's anyone that's going to be in here that's going to be a detractor. So that's always nice.
Right. I have to agree with you. And above you, we got Jake. Not to get confused with me, Jacob. Let's keep that separate. Jake, how you doing?
I'm swell. Thanks for having.
All right. And in the middle is the guy who, he runs the show. MTC, Nerdum, everything. Hunter, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to talk about the MCU, man. Let's go.
Yes, that's what we're talking about today. It was hard coming up with a bracket style for 25 movies and TV shows. So we're going to do the nerd list. This is something that's been done on the channel before, and if you remember back in the Combat Wrestling Trivia days, Hunter did it there as well. And the way it works is each of us taking turns, we'll nominate a movie or a TV show. The two that we have agreed upon in our private chat was WandaVision and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So we'll nominate one of those movies or TV shows, and we'll try to sell it. Why we think it deserves to be in the top 10. And once we get those 10, we will have to eliminate 3 of those choices to get to our top 7. Once we have our top 7, we will then try to come up with an order 1 through 7. If that doesn't work, we'll go outside. We'll fight it out. We'll come back. And whoever wins gets to make the order. Hopefully it doesn't come to that because we don't all live close to each other.
So I mean, I have land-to-air missiles, if necessary, but I don't want them.
So Ryan's going to come up with the order at the end of the show.
Yes, the nuclear option.
Option B.
So
B for button.
Yes.
So that's how it works. I think I hopefully have explained it good enough. And so let's see. Ryan, why don't you kick us off with your first choice? What do you think should be in the top 10 MCU properties?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we probably gotta go with like the elephant in the room, the one that unfortunately up until this past weekend was the #1 box office hit of all time, and it's gotta be Endgame. Even if you're not a fan of the MCU or at least some of the characters, it's the culmination of everything. It's everything Marvel can be in a movie. So if you don't have it in there, you're basically saying, oh, well, you just don't like spectacle. But Endgame is spectacle, but it's also tying up loose ends. You know, anyone who likes a good plot or good story, they like that finish where it's not too open-ended. And you don't get more closed off than that.
Right. I'd have to agree with that. It's definitely in my top 10. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything negative you can say about this movie other than maybe it's 10 minutes too long, but even then, that's just a minor nitpick. And I mean, it's also then like, what 10 minutes do you cut out? So,
True, but if you're the kind of fan that's going to go ahead and do like the marathon stuff and watch all the movies leading up to it, you're in for the long haul. You've had your bathroom breaks. You made sure you're all cleansed out before you watch the damn thing. Right. I don't think there's a layman that's going to go ahead and be like, "Oh my God, when are they finally going to get to the snap? I can't do this anymore."
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. So obviously, I'm going to go ahead and give it a yes. It's definitely in the top 10. Hunter.
Yeah. Endgame is fantastic. It's the conclusion of 23 films done in the best way possible. So it's going to be a yes for me.
All right, so there we go. 3 yeses. It's in the top 10, but just to hear their thoughts. Jake?
Yep, I agree with everything that was said about it. Can't not be there. It's in mine. That's a yes.
All right, and JB3, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and give us your thoughts.
So, pretty much everything Ryan said when he brought it up, like, I mean, there's so many things about that movie that qualifies it. It ties up loose ends. It creates new paths, new journeys for new avenues for the MCU to go. And all in all, like, regardless of anything, I mean, it was just a good movie. Like, it had tons of action. I mean, if you didn't watch the MCU, the least you could do is watch Infinity War and then Endgame and be satisfied, at least from a little bit. So I agree 100%.
Okay, so it's a clean sweep. Endgame has made the short list. JB3, give us a choice. Give us a movie or maybe one of the TV shows.
So what I'm going to do right now is I know what everybody's expecting, because once you pick Endgame, then you're going to pick the next one, which is going to be on the list. I mean, we already know it is. However, I'm going to give my number one favorite MCU movie I want to put on the list right away, because it's the best of the trilogy. It's possibly the best of any other kind that comes out, and it was just all in all it's my favorite, and that's Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok. That's okay. That's my number one favorite MCU film. It's my number one favorite movie ever. So I got to throw it on the list.
Interesting. Hunter, your thoughts?
See, I enjoyed the hell out of Thor Ragnarok. Does it belong in the top 10? That's the question. I got to vote a slight no. And that's only because I think the comedy in the movie at points took away from some of the heartfelt moments in the movie. And that's the only reason why I said it. I like the comedy in the movie. I like how fun it is. But there are certain moments that didn't need the comedy moments. And that's kind of what rubs me the wrong way with it.
Okay, so we got 1 for, 1 against. Jake?
I'm going to say 100% yes. It is also my number one. I kind of thought that would be one of the ones that was unanimous. So I'm happy to see we're going to have some fun. So, yeah, big yes from me on that one.
Okay. So Ryan, is it going to advance or are we going to have a tie?
I'm going to say advance, simply based on the fact, yes, it is a little bit more jokey than some of the other MCU movies, but considering the characters involved, it's basically a redemption of the character of Thor. which
Right.
ultimately was just a blonde-haired pretty boy with a hammer. It gave a personality that we haven't seen from him. We started seeing the cracks in the armor more so, and to a lesser extent, it even gave a little bit of redemption to Hulk, which we actually got to see a little bit more of just the Hulk itself rather than having to worry about Banner and his bad haircut. So for those facts alone, and redeeming two Avengers and making them more prominent than say they had been in previous Avenger movies, for that reason alone, it has to be in.
Yeah, this one I can go back and forth on if it makes my top 10 or not. I love the comedy in it. I think this is Chris Hemsworth's like second best performance in the MCU, in my opinion. And yeah, I just love the Korg, whatever his name is. I can't remember. It's Korg, yeah. He the comedy that he brings, I just love. And it gave us,
he doesn't have an impression of Korg at this point,
right? And it gave us the "because that's what heroes do" meme. So yeah, that puts it over the top for me, as it should for anyone.
Fair.
So, all right, so we're 2 for 2, 2 choices, two movies advancing. If that's the way this show goes, it might be pretty boring. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Jake, you got a choice for us?
I'm gonna go with my number 2 then. Black Panther. Just fantastic bit of cinema, acting, great villain in Killmonger, great hero in rest in peace Chadwick. Costume design, everything about the movie is just fantastic.
All right, so we got Black Panther up for discussion. Hunter, what do you think about Black Panther?
This is my favorite MCU movie of all 23. It's going to be a yes for me.
All right, I don't know why that's not the choice I expected to be your number 1. So I'm pleasantly surprised. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Black Panther?
I will only say this. I had to work at a movie theater when this movie was playing. So I am pretty much numb to Black Panther at this point, having seen it so many times, having heard it so many times. But because of the characters that are introduced and because of the impact, and yes, more so than anything else, because of Killmonger, yeah, it definitely deserves to be on there.
All right, JB3, it advances, but I still want to hear your thoughts.
Wakanda forever.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, I like how like 5 white guys going Wakanda forever. That's good. You can tell we're in touch with things.
Hey, that movement has broke through.
I love
We're
Black
not appropriating
Panther.
it. We're not trying to take it. But
right.
I love Black Panther. I was ecstatic when it got a Best Picture nomination. I thought it was deserved. I knew it wasn't going to win, but the fact that it was nominated, I thought was really cool. And so we got a second clean sweep. Black Panther advances. All right, so Hunter.
Hey, we can't forget about Shuri either. Shuri. Let's give a shout out to Shuri.
Shout out Princess Shuri, one of my favorite MCU characters. Period.
Possibly the future Black Panther, depending on how they do the sequel.
Yeah.
All right. So if nothing else, tip of the hat to Chadwick Boseman. May he rest.
Hell yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go with one that I'm surprised wasn't the very first one picked. I'm gonna go Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Look at what it did for the MCU. It took it from, being a really good franchise at that point to being a spy epic that could really stand alone as a solo movie, but watching it together as a whole in the whole series, so much moves forward with it. And the fact that the acting is really great. You've got some of the greatest action scenes. The elevator scene is fantastic. I'm putting Captain America, the Winter Soldier, up for debate.
See, I go back and forth on this one. Is this my favorite Captain America movie, or is another one that I may nominate next my favorite Captain America movie? So for that reason, I think Captain America has to be represented in the MCU in a top 10 list. Is it this movie, or could it be both? I think what this movie has going for it also is that you could watch this standalone. I think, like, this is just on its own a really good movie. And so I'm going to go ahead and vote yes for that reason, because I think this movie could also get like just casual viewers, not necessarily like MCU fans like we are. I think it could get them, interested in the MCU. So that's my vote. I'm going to go yes. JB3, what do you think?
This is on the lower side of my list, my top 10 list, but it still makes the list. It's probably like it'd be like 9 or 10 for me personally. But I mean, this film, so like around this time with the MCU, you had a lot of different movies and a lot of different movies that took they had a lot of different settings and they had a lot of different styles and all what have you. This proves that you could go away from the superpower cosmic blasts and you can get into like this spy film that's intriguing. You have to pay attention, like the Captain America, super soldier or not, the scene in the elevator is like one of the best scenes of all time. And yeah, I mean, you really think about it, a movie that good would be on the lower side of a top 10 list for me and still be that good. Like, you got to give it credit. So that's definitely on the list for me.
All right, so we got 3 yeses. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, as you can tell, Team Cap always. But in the spectrum of all the movies, it was really like the first time we were able to see what a sequel could be in the MCU, especially considering we had Iron Man 2 before that. And that's, a hit or miss. But this was just Winter Soldier was a movie that was universally well received, not only because, it was a better sequel than, say, maybe the original was, but also because it showed how many different avenues the MCU could really go into when it wanted to. Pretty much like JB said. And, when you go ahead and you take away all the spectacle, the glitz, the glamour, the superpowers, and you just get down to like some nitty gritty action, like some one-on-one real fisticuff sort of stuff, it might be considered possibly the most manliest movie in the MCU, I would say.
I can agree with that.
Yes.
So Jake?
Yep, it's a yes from me. On Your Left comes from this movie.
On Your Left.
Man.
On Your Left, yep. And then when it pays off again in Endgame, which we've already put up there.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
Amazing.
And it's going to pay off when next weekend when the show comes on.
Oh, so
at some point in that series, it's going to happen.
They're gonna have to do it.
And we get DSP in this movie.
I think that On the Left moment in Endgame I think that was one of the moments that we all felt the same way Cap felt. Like, we felt that warmth, that, oh, thank God. Like, man, yes, they're back. Like, and then everyone, like, man, I got to stop talking about it.
That moment
was Sam Wilson being too damn slow.
That moment is up there with for me with a Cap wielding Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
Oh, so badass.
So many good moments. All right, so we're 4 for 4. We're a lot more alike than I thought. So I'm going to put up a movie that I'm not sure will make it, but it's in my top 10, and that's Spider-Man Far From Home. So I think it's easy for me to say that Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man. I love Tobey. He's my childhood Spider-Man, but Tom Holland, I think, just embodies the character, and he actually looks like a high schooler, so that's also good.
Helps.
I think Far From Home. I think getting to explore more of the relationship between Peter and MJ. I really like that. I liked the villain. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is a fantastic villain, even though the twist that he is the villain might have been a little predictable. I still enjoyed it. It might be my bias because Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. I even enjoyed parts of Amazing Spider-Man 2. But there was a time when I liked this more than Endgame. When it initially came out, I was like, oh my goodness, I love this movie. Of course, it's not now. Upon rewatching both these movies, Endgame is the superior MCU film. But I loved Far From Home. I thought it was unique. I loved, seeing Nick Fury back on screen, even if it wasn't Nick Fury, it was still Samuel L. Jackson. And the way it set up the future of Spider-Man was really intriguing to me. The reveal at the end, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And where do they go from there? I mean, because I think that's something that we have to take into account when talking about MCU films is what does it set up also, and does it do that well? And I think this did it well. It's really got me excited for the next Spider-Man movie. So I will put Far From Home up for the vote, and let's go to Jake first.
I love Far From Home. I'm a big Spider-Man guy, and it only happened recently. I'm not going to claim to go back to the 90s with the web slinger. But 2018, between Spider-Verse and the PS4 game, I loved both of those so much. So I was just loving Spider-Man. So Jake Gyllenhaal, fantastic. Tom Holland, best live action Spider-Man. I think we'd all agree. But I am going to have to say no on this one in the top 10. Unfortunately, even though I love it to death, I just think there are 10, 12, 13 maybe better movies.
I definitely can see that, and I don't agree with it, and I think you're wrong.
Yes, the first fight of the evening.
Ryan, let's hear your thoughts. What do you think?
I'm kind of two minds because, with all respect, Spider-Man is essentially like one of the two newest characters in the MCU. I'd say more so than many of the established ones. And it's more of like a debate of like, which one do I like better, Far From Home or Homecoming? So, while I do admit, yes, Spider-Man is a great character. We've been watching him ever since the early 2000s, even older than that if you want to throw in the animated series. But I would say for like the top 10 of the entirety of the MCU, I'm going to have to say no. Only because I feel like since we already know what third movie is coming out, I feel like that is probably going to be the better of the two sequels from Homecoming. But even then, Homecoming was just such a great standalone movie. Technically wasn't an origin, but I would have to pick that one over Far From Home.
All right, you guys are killing me, but I'll live with it. Hunter, what do you think?
See, I love Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor, and I think he played a great Mysterio. Freaking J.K. Simmons came back as J. Jonah Jameson, which got the biggest reaction in my theater of probably the year. Not gonna lie,
Well, I was
but
not a fan of the bald head.
Hey, man.
but I think I like Homecoming a bit more than Far From Home, so I cannot put it in my top 10 of all time.
All right. Well, there we go. We got our first no. I'm not surprised, but I wanted to put it up, show it a little love because it is my favorite Spider-Man movie in the MCU of the two. I mean, but JB3, what would you have said? Just because.
It's really funny because, like, I was gonna go the same route that they did. So, like, you talk about, him being predictable. Mysterio. I think it was meant to be that way because we still had to see how naive Peter was. Peter's pretty naive still, and it showed it big time. I think that was the purpose of that, to make it predictable, but not to him, but to everybody else. But yeah, Far From Home is amazing. I loved it so much. Like, that's the thing about it. Like, I love this whole movie, but literally, the movie came in at number 11 on my list. Like, it's just that it ain't got nothing to do with. It's just there's so many good ones that were on my list, and it just didn't make it. Like, it is my favorite of the two, and I like both of them a lot. But yeah, I just did number 11, so it would have been enough.
Well, there we go. There's our first no. Ryan, give us your second nomination.
All right, all the way back around. Well, since my first nomination was Endgame, might as well go in the other direction and talk about the one that pretty much started it all. You don't have an MCU if you don't start off with Iron Man. Like, no one knew what this movie was going to be like when it first came out. They were just like, okay, so we've had X-Men movies, we've had Spider-Man movies, and now we have an Iron Man movie because, licensing rights. And damn, if it didn't surprise everyone with that opening box office, if it didn't redeem Robert Downey Jr. as an actor, if it didn't set the pace for everything that we have gotten up to this point, even with just that little end credit scene at the end with Sam Jackson,
The most
there's
important one.
just so much that has been built on that building block.
Right, and I'd have to agree with you there. I think just because it did start it all off, and if it wasn't successful, we're not having this discussion.
Right. I mean, you could make the argument that considering it was made by a completely different company and there was no MCU, there was no Disney affiliation at that time, you could say it's far and beyond a different movie than everything we've gotten since. But I think you kind of have to have those differences. Otherwise, everything's becoming homogenized into the same palette. That little bit of extra, maybe a little bit more mature flavor than you get with more of the, palatable tongue-in-cheek stuff that we get now. It just makes it stand out so much more.
Right, and I also think not only is this one of my favorite MCU movies, it's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. And I would put this up there as like probably top 2 or 3 best origin stories when it comes to superhero movies. So obviously I'm giving this a yes. Hunter, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a yes for me. Not only for the historical factor of it being the start of the MCU, but as Ryan brought up, it gave a new career to Robert Downey Jr. when everyone thought his career was over. And then he comes in and plays Tony Stark to perfection. And now, I mean, yes, Doolittle, but let's not talk about that. But, but just the fact that it took someone from obscurity, took someone who was down in his career and brought him back. and the fact that the movie is actually really, really damn good nowadays. The villain I could do without, not gonna lie, but overall, it's a yes for me. It's a great film.
Right, and that final line, "I am Iron Man."
I am
That was-
Iron Man.
That just-
Another great callback, yeah.
So, Jake, we've got three yeses, but I want to hear your thoughts anyway.
So when I was building my list on Saturday, I was flip-flopping this one, 10, 11, 10, 11, and it ended up at 10. So for that purpose, I'm going to give it a yes, but for yes, all the reasons you listed. And I love me some Obadiah Stane. And Tony Stark lives in a cave from scraps.
Yeah, you have to understand. I mean, this is the beginning of
That's
everything. You're
not
not
a
going to get a
great
superpowered villain or a magician or anything. No, you're going to get a corporate businessman that tries to take everything from you.
He's yelling at
Yeah,
Ralphie from a
I don't
Christmas
need-
Story.
I don't need the copying of the suits thing. At that point, we've seen it a lot too.
But the
And
beard, the bald head and the beard. See,
What
bald
do you mean
head
with that?
on
Wait,
Obadiah
that was
Jeff
the
Stane
first
Bridges,
one.
Jeff Bridges
bald
was
head on
good.
J. Jonah Jameson doesn't work.
Copying of the suits. That was the first copy of the suit. It was the first one. And it's a yes for me too, by the way.
By the way,
Sorry,
rest
guys.
in peace, Terrence Howard's career until he got down to television.
That's
Yeah.
another.
What could have been, man? What could have been?
I just want to pose a question real quick. It's Terrence Howard or Don Cheadle? Hunter,
Don Cheadle.
Jake.
Cheadle, given what he's given us, but I loved Howard at first, and I'm a big fan of his.
JB3.
Boom, you looking for me?
Yeah, Terrence Howard or John Cheadle,
I just said Don Cheadle.
and Ryan.
It's hard, man, because I am a Howard fan.
He did good.
Everything I've seen on Empire, it really could have shown the kind of roadie we could have gotten, but for that sympathetic sort of feel, yeah, you gotta go more Cheadle.
Mm-hmm. See, I love Terrence Howard, and I think he would have been great if he continued. But I'd have to go Don Cheadle too. All right, so we got Ryan nominating Iron Man with a clean sweep. And then I forgot who I went to after you last time. Was it Jake?
Jake.
All right,
Jake.
Jake, give us your second nomination.
Alrighty then. Most of my top 5 is pretty gone. Let's see. Do I want to just go there or should I go there? I'll say Civil War. And that's another flip-floppy situation. I went with Winter Soldier and Civil War at my 3 and 4 behind Ragnarok and Black Panther. Both great stories. They both have like the Steve versus Bucky, the Steve versus Tony, similar fight situations. We get Spider-Man. We get more of Tony's, Tony humor that didn't exist in Winter Soldier, which I always love. The whole team, the Clash, and I might be slightly more biased towards it because of WandaVision, and like WandaVision kind of raised all those movies for me, so maybe that. But yeah, I'm gonna say Civil War.
Civil War. So we got Civil War up for nomination. JB3, you kick us off this time.
All right. By the way, just to let you know, you went to me after Ryan last time, but it's all good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, nice. And I'm the one who does all man. Anyway, no.
Listen, are you going to
Civil War-
complain the whole time?
I might.
Oh,
And I might
that's
put
fair.
that energy into your questions too. I'm saying, and Hunter, just because. Why not? I'm just kidding. No, Civil War is definitely on my list. I mean, I think that was one of the first movies that had that badass trailers that they started putting out. Like, I think it was right around then they started putting out those super badass trailers, and that was one of them. But yeah, I mean, it was our taste of what we were gonna get in Infinity War and Endgame. That was the here's your little taste. Let me sprinkle some of this on you of what's to come, and we knew it, and it was beautiful, and we loved it, and it was a big time spectacle, but it also told a deep, like, intricate story, like, at the same time, and then it flowed really good, and it introduced two new characters. What movie could introduce two new characters like that and still make a six? That if somebody else did that, any other movie did that, they'd be like, huh? Like they've tried. Every time a movie had introduced too many characters, Spider-Man 3, things too much.
Spider-Man 2.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like, so yeah, this really, really nailed it for that, for me, for that purpose. Like, Civil War is definitely a yes.
All right. Ryan?
I am so torn. First of all, yes, obviously, Team Cap. This is where it all started, Team Cap. But then there's the other side of me that's like, well, okay, this was pretty much just a practice movie for the MCU in a sense. They wanted to see how much they could set up in one film, knowing what their quote unquote end game was going to be. So it just kind of felt like, I mean, at the end of the day, the split between Team Cap and Team Iron Man was kind of a moot thing. So as far as plot wise, it's not one of the better plots. But in the entirety of things, it's what Avengers 2 should have been, in my mind, with what they did with it. So, based upon the villain, because, I mean, more credit needs to be given to Daniel Bruhl's Baron Zemo. His machinations. It fit perfectly with the kind of stuff you were getting from Captain America. So I'd say for that particular film, since it was a Cap movie, it fit perfectly. And yes, there's the Spider-Man thing. There's the Black Panther thing. But then there's also actually getting to see more of some of the characters. I got me some Ant-Man. I got me some Hawkeye. And they were actually useful. And I would say, yes, it goes in. Only because as much of a practice movie as it was, it definitely was showing that the MCU was starting to come together. It was like the mid-focal point.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the piece of paper where you're folding it upon itself.
Right.
Civil War is right there at that crease. So, if you're gonna bring in the whole of the paper, you gotta bring in the edge.
I can agree with that. Hunter?
Again, I'm on two minds of this. As JB3 said, it's a great spectacle that also tells a really good story, which I love. But I think it was a little too heavy on other things, trying to put in the new characters, trying to focus on the backstory, try to get Team Cap versus Team Iron Man, try to get Daniel Bro's Baron Zemo character something to do. It felt just a little too much for me. And after a while of rewatching it, it's still a good movie. I feel like they could have focused up on Team Cap versus Team Iron Man and had that be the focal point, and that would have worked better than trying to cram a lot of stuff in a 2.5 hour movie. So it's going to be a slight no for me.
Well, we're gonna go 4-1 on this one because I will also say yes. And spoiler alert: this is my favorite MCU movie. Is Civil War. I love. I just love everything about it. I think Robert Downey Jr. gives one of his best performances in the entire MCU in this movie. I love the back and forth between him and Captain America, and the fight at the end between Cap and Bucky and Iron Man is one of my favorites. I might like that fight scene more than I like the airport scene. And so it's a definite yes for me, because not only, like I said, this is my favorite MCU movie of all time, this is actually one of my favorite movies, period. So I'm giving it a yes. We have our sixth movie, out of 10. And just to recap, so far we have Avengers Endgame, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, The Winter Soldier, Iron Man, and Civil War. Will we get our 7th movie in, JB3? Hit us with it.
So,
Or should I go to Hunter next?
I mean, it's up to you, really.
Let's go, JB3. Give us a choice.
So, out of the 6 that's been picked, all 6 of those are on my list. So, out of the 4 that are left, I can guarantee that there's 3 that everybody will agree to. So, I'm going to go with the other one. I'm going to throw out my other one just to see what happens, because I think this one may be disagreed with and may get thrown off. I may get lucky, but my pick is Doctor Strange.
Ooh.
Well, based off those 2 reactions, I'll just go ahead. It's a no from me. And that's not to say that I don't like it or I don't love it, because I do. I think there's like 2 movies in the MCU where I'm just like, when I do the yearly marathon, as I think almost any MCU fan does, leading up to a new movie, or just because there's just good movies. These are the 2 that there's 2 that I'm not as excited about. Doctor Strange falls in the bottom half of the MCU for me. And I can't really say why. I don't know why. It's just not one that I'm as excited to go back and revisit. I do think Benedict Cumberbatch is fantastic, and any chance I get to say his name, I'll take it. I think the story is really good. I thought the way it was designed, like the action scenes and just the way, the magic and sorcery happened, I thought looked really cool. But it's a story that I'm not as crazy about as some of the others in the MCU. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say no. I did like Doctor Strange in Infinity War. I think that was a better performance of the Doctor Strange character. So it's a no from me. Hunter, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Jacob. It's a no for me. I think the first half is okay. Cumberbatch does really, really, really good as usual. What ruins it for me is that portrayal of Dormammu in the last half.
Dormammu,
yeah. He just the design I thought was very Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer with the mirrors and shit like that. The scene itself is good. It's got good humor, but it felt forced in to have this big bad be the main villain when we already had a villain going on through the first half of the movie. So it's gonna be a no for me.
Okay, Ryan.
I almost wish I had a longer beard so I could stroke it properly.
That's what she said.
All right, fine. You knocked me out of it with that. As far as being in the top 10, I do think you have to have it. Only because the thing about Doctor Strange, regardless of what you may think of Caecilius, and regardless of what you may think about being another origin story, the MCU as a whole is more than just, superpowers and, gods. If even Thor Ragnarok, even though there is a slight mysticism with, well, this is magic, we call it magic because we call it science, blah, 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 blah. However you want to see what his power set is, it's still more space. It's still more outside the cosmos. You need something to show that mystical part of the MCU. You need something that's actually going to go ahead beyond the expectations of superheroism. And you see a lot of gray areas in this. It's not so much good and bad. There's a good amount of gray that shows the duality of, the balance that goes on in the MCU about, a person's actions versus ideals and, what you have to do to get things done. And I think it amplifies more so those aspects than say some of the other traditional superhero movies that are on this list or have been mentioned. And obviously, I'm a bit of a Doctor Strange fan myself. I've got my trippy ass poster over there, right there. And with that many movies, I mean, not only do you incorporate like horror fans to some extent, not only do you incorporate people that like supernatural stuff, which you really haven't seen in the other films. Dude, if you have the right kind of edible and you watch that movie, you are good for a while. All right.
I don't know if that's a positive. It's like you have to be high to watch the movie.
Technically, it is a positive because then you're having something in this whole of this cinematic universe that is speaking to an audience that maybe the other movies don't get to speak to. You laugh, but let's face it, if you're going to go ahead and do those marathons, you're going to need something to relax your body. Otherwise, you're going to just be like, I can't take anymore.
Right.
But,
I just want to throw this out there, too. Look at one movie in Doctor Strange built up the prestige of that character so that if you see him in any part of the MCU, you're like, shit's getting real. Like, it's fucking Doctor Strange. Like, they did that. They built him up in that whole movie to be that guy. So...
Yeah,
to me, that's why
between the ancient one putting him out of his body to that, that whole fight in the Santorum where the cape comes into play, and the creative use of winning the fight without necessarily throwing a single punch. It brings about a whole different thing that you can get in the MCU that you couldn't be able to get from Iron Man or Cap or Thor or any of the original Avengers.
You guys bring up some great points. I might have to revisit this and rethink my list after this. But as of right now, we got a 2-2 split, and Jake, you got to break it.
Oh no!
Dun, dun, dun.
I feel so terrible. But all I can think about is whether Thor Ragnarok or Doctor Strange has better edible visuals.
Well, I know what I'm doing next weekend.
Solid. It's gonna be a no. Where was I gonna go with this? Oh yeah, it ended up at 14 for me. When I was making my list, I found a pretty clear divide between the top 12 and the bottom 12, and I wasn't including Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And like Far From Home and Doctor Strange are right there at the top of the second tier, I found. But yeah, I love the movie. Can't say anything bad about it. It's just, again, there are some slightly more awesome movies, in my opinion.
All right, so we got our second denial. I know how you feel, JB3.
No, I love it. It went the ringer. I love how that whole thing turned out. It went to the end. It actually caused a real debate.
I tried.
Let's see if we can get another debate with Hunter's second nomination.
All right, so I'm going to go with one that I know a lot of fans love, and it's kind of divisive with some. I'm going to go with the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm putting that on my list as a nomination because, well, one, it introduced a brand new, literally cosmic era to the MCU with the Guardians, with Gamora, with Groot, with Rocket. It gave us our first real look at Thanos in action, what he's going to look like, how he's built, things like that, and what his role is going to be moving forward. So it does have that rippling effect. Plus, it has that perfect balance of fun, entertaining, and super, super high energy, but knows where to ground it to where it doesn't feel like the whole momentum of the movie stops completely. I love all the actors. I love how all the characters relate to each other in some sort of way. And not only is this movie fun, but it moves the MCU along, and it's just a great movie, in my opinion.
All right, so Guardians is up for nomination. Jake, I went to you last for Doctor Strange. I'm not going to do that to you this time. I'll let you kick it off.
Yep, I have Guardians there too. Gosh, just the way it does the team up aspect, it's right there with the first Avengers in how it puts those characters together. Soundtrack amazing. Yeah, not much to say. I was forgetting something, but nah, go ahead.
All right, so that's two yeses. Ryan?
With this, it kind of takes me back to the whole Spider-Man debate. Like, which one do I really feel like would be the better of the two movies, and does that movie necessarily belong in the top 10? For me, I have to say Volume 2 is a better movie than the original. I would say that simply because just for the things that Hunter said about it. Yes, Guardians is fun, it's wacky, it's out there. Although I'd say while both movies have that, certainly the second one had a better story than the first one. And all around a better villain too. And I don't know. I mean, you could say yes, it kind of bridges the gap with the whole Thanos thing, but obviously the Thanos we ended up with was not the Thanos that was sitting in the chair there. And Ronan himself was kind of weak, which is a shame because Ronan is definitely one of the most prominent characters in the cosmic specter of Marvel. And they kind of just, Lee Pace had so much potential. But yeah, at that point, it just pretty much became like, here's the Avengers, but, weird. While it was fun-loving, I think there are better fun-loving movies in the MCU. And so I wouldn't necessarily put that one primarily at the top 10. It's probably like somewhere between 11 and 15, I would say.
Okay. JB3? You're muted.
He's thinking.
He's thinking.
Yeah. He doesn't want to do like I do and just spill all my guts out. He wants to be calculated with this.
Yeah, no, Dead Air is great, JB3.
That's fine.
I know. Look, this is a tough one because you guys all bring up really good points on both sides. Because this is another one of those for me that was at the 10, 11 spot, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever. Like it's right on the edge. So like they introduced very important characters. It introduced the cosmos. That was one of the big things that Hunter said. That's one of the big things that's true. It did. There's a lot about this movie. I personally actually like this one better than the second one. But I mean, there's right there. Like they're really both really good to me. The only reason I liked the first one better is because I didn't really like Ego that much. That's just me. That's my personal thing, But
I'm sorry if I've got daddy issues,
Hey, no, it's a great film. Like they're pretty much all of it. This is what's so difficult about this.
I can't cut that out. We're live.
We're live now.
No. I mean, just like have that part as its very own video. Sorry,
nope.
Yeah, I'd have to say, yeah, it's on my list, right on there. It has to be just because that is one of the movies that's important. Like just like Doctor Strange to me, I feel like there's particular movies that if you're gonna go through and watch like the top 10 movies, I think that would be an important one to watch. I mean, it introduces so many things. So yes, it has to go on the list.
Yeah, I would have said yes as well. I never thought a tree and a raccoon could make me emotional, and they did. And it's got a great soundtrack. And it's got a great soundtrack. I love the action. I loved exploring space, and the fact that I thought I would not like this when it first came out, and then to enjoy it as much as I did, and it's one I could revisit more often than some of the others. And that's a big thing for me is rewatchability.
Yep.
When it comes to a top 10 list, and this one definitely has the rewatchability for me, more so than others. There's only like 3 that I might not rewatch as often, though. Let's be honest. So we got our 7th movie on the list, and hopefully my next choice can finally make it. I'm surprised it hasn't been talked about yet. I'm going to put up Infinity War. That movie was just, oh my goodness, like the action from beginning to end, finally seeing all, well, not all of them on screen at the same time, which I think was really smart. They didn't give us that big team up like I think most of us thought would happen in when you hear about Infinity War for the first time. I think Mark Ruffalo was really good in this movie. I think he more so than Thor Ragnarok, in my opinion. I think this was his good like comeback performance in the MCU, because I think Age of Ultron was so, and then you kind of don't see him for a few movies. And so that was really cool because I just love him as an actor in general. But the dynamic between Doctor Strange and Iron Man was really cool for me. And Spider-Man. Oh, we're using our made-up names. I'm Spider-Man.
All right.
That was a fun line. The comedy works, even though this is like a very serious movie. I think the comedy lands really well. The team ups were done really well, I think. And just the action scenes, I loved. Thor in this movie was the MVP. I think this is Thor's best performance in the entire MCU, in my opinion. And this movie just had it all. And the end, I think I sat in my seat in the theater for 10 minutes after the end. Like, that is not where I thought this movie was going. and not only that, I saw this movie twice, opening day, and I've never done that with a movie before. So I'm putting up Infinity War for the top 10. Not only is it top 10, I think it's top 3. But we're not debating top 3, we're debating top 10. So Hunter, what do you think about Infinity War?
I mean, we got Endgame in there. I think Infinity War is just as good. I think both of them are equally as great. And for everything that Jacob said, I think the action is really good. It gave us one of the best MCU villains of all time in Thanos. That was a true build to a villain that actually succeeded. And that's something that a lot of franchises can't do, is a big world-ending villain that actually is great, and you actually have that moral dilemma in your brain of, is he correct? And that's the pull back and forth that I love that really great villains have. The action's great, the comedy's great. It's gonna be a yes for me.
Yeah, there was actually a moment where I felt sorry for Thanos, and I'm like, wait, no, he's the bad guy. I shouldn't be feeling like that. So that's another reason. Like, there's just so many reasons, but we don't have time to get into all of them. Let's just move down the line, Jake.
Yep, I mean, I could list a billion fantastic scenes from this movie. I do tend to overshadow it in my mind a bit by Endgame. And that's one downside to where my list is at, because I'm in the middle of my chronological rewatching of the MCU. So I think I need to freshly see Infinity War, and it might get bumped a little higher. But it did get 9 on my slot, so it's a yes.
All right, JB3.
This is tied for my second favorite MCU film. So, for sure, everything you said, like watching him, when you seen Stormbreaker go into the chest, that's where it was the moment where everyone was like, "This is the moment where the hero wins," because it's happened 20 other times before. You know, so like this is our moment, and he's pushing it in his chest, and then we hear him, and then as soon as he said, "We should have gone for the head," and we see the snap, everything just snapped, and everybody it was like, "Wait, what?" And all of a sudden, everyone got dusted, and you're just like, what?" And then the music that played as the credits started rolling too was like, the dude really did sit down on an rest on a job well done. Like he did what he said he was gonna do, like 100%. It floored me. It was like the Undertaker getting beat at WrestleMania 30 type stuff.
Just sit there with the big eyes.
Yeah, just like yeah, exactly. So yes,
So we got 4
definitely
yeses. Ryan, is it a clean sweep?
First of all, why'd you have to open up that damn wound of the Undertaker? God damn you.
I mean, I'm sorry. I felt that they were connected.
Ah, I thought we were clear of this. No. But I mean, it's gonna be unanimous. But I'll at least want to take my time and be like, there's a reason I have that poster right there. There's a reason I have this little, emblem here, because this was from the Infinity War marathon that I went to in New York City, where I had to basically sleep in a movie theater with a bunch of other sweaties, all of us in our seats. I think I probably slept around Guardians of the Galaxy when it came on. But yeah, if you're gonna have Endgame, you have to have Infinity War. It's all part of one story. It's pretty much a gut punch, yes. But in a movie where the superheroes practically always win, you need that gut punch. You need, again, it goes back to the idea of balance. You need to be able to show that the villains have some stake, that they can alter the universe just as much as the heroes can, either for better or for worse. Otherwise, they're not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
All right. So we got our 8th movie. And we're pushing it on time, so let's just give a movie, and then because we've only got 2 slots left to fill our top 10. So, and I know we all have lives. We don't just sit and talk about movies all day.
It's Sunday. Who cares?
So we are back around to Ryan. So Ryan, give us a movie.
Okay. So based on everything we have here, I think I will nominate the original, the 2012 Avengers, because that was something before it actually happened. It was something that was unprecedented, that you were going to have these separate, superhero movies all meshed together. You were going to have all these actors of such great caliber meshed together in one particular film to tell one particular story. And say what you will about the Chitauri, as far as being able to have something that highlights so much in one film. There's a reason it's standout. There's a reason it broke the bank when it came out. And that was a damn good birthday weekend for me.
All right, so we got Avengers. I'll just go ahead and say it. Yes for me. Seeing those guys all, see, everyone's giving a thumbs up. I think it's clear. Avengers. I didn't think I was surprised it lasted this long to be nominated. So that's 9. We've got one more. JB3, give us a movie.
I'm not going to give you a movie.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a WandaVision.
WandaVision is WandaVision top 10. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and say no. It's like 11th or 12th for me in the MCU, but that's because I like all 9 of these movies might make my list, and then Far From Home and Homecoming kind of hover around there, and WandaVision, just because there were parts of WandaVision I didn't like, and I think that's where it gets kind of tricky, including a TV series among 23 movies, is because you're debating 2.5 hours over, 10 or 9 30 to 40-minute episodes. But for me, there's just a few nitpicks with WandaVision. If you haven't seen WandaVision yet, spoilers. Maybe. I didn't like the finale as much, and maybe that's because I haven't seen that, because we haven't seen what's going to happen next. And that might be it, and I don't know if that's a fair criticism, but that's how I feel, guys. But so it's a no from me, but if I'm outvoted, I will gladly step aside. Hunter.
It's gonna be a yes for me. If JB3 didn't bring it up, I was gonna try to bring it up. Just what a hell of a show. And the fact that we talk about in all these movies how one of the aspects for me is how does it change the MCU going forward? This WandaVision is going to completely change what we think of the MCU for the next phase. And that's what I'm super excited for. I mean, and Wanda herself, Elizabeth Olsen, should give that performance in the TV show where she has to handle completely different aspects of her character. She does it super well. And yeah, it's definitely a yes for me.
Okay, Jake.
It is hard because of recency bias and the formatting, as you mentioned. But yes, from me, give Olsen, Bettany, Han all the Emmys. It was fantastic. I was also gonna shoot my WandaVision shot, so I'm glad all three of us were of the same mind. So big yes.
All right, and Ryan.
I can appreciate what WandaVision went out and did, and I certainly enjoyed it. But did I feel like it needs to be in the top 10 of the MCU? I probably would have voted no, only because as far as it being, I mean, this is essentially more so like a Scarlet Witch origin story, more so than say, something else. And to go ahead and talk about the length of time with all the episodes combined, the length of time is essentially equivalent to watching Infinity War and Endgame back to back.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we have seen the long form storytelling as far as a particular plot. I would just say, yeah, some of the pacing was definitely off with it, and it has to be one of those things where I almost feel like you have to have already some investment in Vision or Wanda to really get behind it. So, I mean, if you didn't care about them in the movies, then you're probably not going to care about them in the TV series, regardless of what you see from them and what you see from all the minor ancillary characters that come in from all the other parts of the films. So it was a good first attempt. It was a great way to actually show that they can do television outside of the movies. But do I think it's the top 10? The upper echelon? No, not yet.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's where I am too. But we got a 3-2 vote.
Hey, real quick, I forgot to put it in there. We got to appreciate the redemption of Darcy, the redemption of Jimmy Woo. I mean, those characters were just comic relief, and then they just got turned into like these badass characters that made sense. And then we got a new superhero out of it too, Monica Rambeau.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, but with
throw that out there real quick.
That would be my thing.
And Jimmy finally learned the magic trick, so that was cool.
He
to
learned
see.
a few magic tricks.
Yeah.
I want to see him in Multiverse of Madness. I want to see him like conjure something.
I just want to see an X-Files MCU show starring Jimmy Woo. He has to fix different mysteries every week.
I want his partner to be Bob from Deadpool.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we got our 10. We've got, just real quick, we got Endgame, we got Ragnarok, Black Panther, Winter Soldier, Iron Man, Civil War, Guardians of the Galaxy 1, Infinity War, the original Avengers, and WandaVision. So now we got to eliminate 3, and the first one I would eliminate from the top 7. So now we're going to go from 10 down to 7. Is WandaVision. I don't think it's top 7. So if you disagree, speak up. So I'm gonna put that one to be eliminated first. I would put it at of these 10. I would put it 10.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
Okay.
I will also disagree. The top 10 we decided also happens to be my top 10, coincidentally.
The only thing I would say about why I disagree is because I think there's a movie on here that what WandaVision does for the whole MCU as a whole right now, this other movie doesn't.
What movie is that? Let's go ahead. Just go ahead and put it out.
Thor Ragnarok. It's a good movie. It does have comedic moments, but again, I'm still stuck on too much comedy, and it doesn't do a lot for the MCU as a whole. That WandaVision does bring in going forward, I should say.
Yeah. See, Ragnarok is also one I would cut from the top 7. So I will agree with that.
I disagree with that. Ragnarok. There's no way you can cut Ragnarok from the top 7. It redeemed one of the best characters, one of the top 6. I mean, Thor Ragnarok is important, and to say that it didn't set up a bunch of movies, or set up anything. I mean, look at the end. That's when everything got started with Infinity War. That was the kickoff. That was like what's going to happen. Look what it did for Hulk's character. It brought in Valkyrie, like all these things that Ragnarok did. To me personally, like it set up Infinity War better than any of the other movies set up Infinity War. That set up Infinity War. I get it, comic relief, but like honestly, it needed that comic relief because that is
not every character.
It's become a staple for the MCU. Every movie has parts of that comedy in there. Like Thor Ragnarok. I can understand if it's not people's number 1, like it's mine, but definitely top 7.
I also gotta say with Ragnarok as my 1, I cannot in good faith vote it out.
All right, so we got 2 voting it out, 2 keeping it in. Ryan, you're the decider. Does it stay in?
Oh, criminy. All right. So, well, I just want to ask Hunter this one thing. Per your opinion, what is it that WandaVision does to shape or change the MCU?
It sets up what the future movies are going to be, which is it's going to focus on younger superheroes, and we saw that with Photon. He's probably going to be part of the new Avengers coming up. You've got a redemption of Wanda and Vision, which again a lot of people didn't really like in those movies. They love them in this show because they gave them something interesting to work with, and that's where I understand the redemption of characters for Thor. I mean, you said the exact same thing for WandaVision. It gave us, Darcy had a lot more to do, and she was a very good character. Jimmy Woo had a lot more to do, and I actually really loved that character. And of course, Wanda and Vision, who people didn't really like in the MCU for a little while until future movies, but this show really proves why they are one of the two of the most important Avengers.
Okay, well, I'll say this. Thor Ragnarok was so good that it's the only movie in the MCU besides the Avengers to get a 4th. That's how good Ragnarok is. I get there's some unpopular opinions, but man, Ragnarok was a huge, huge hit. It didn't just redeem characters. Like I said, it's getting a 4th movie. Like,
I mean,
only
that's
the Avengers
just because it made money, though. I mean, if it
it
made money, I mean,
that's because people watched it and loved it. That's because it was a great film.
Because they made money.
This is kind of what I was waiting for.
How do you tell a Disney movie's great? It does great in the box office. It makes money. That's what it's about.
I know it's about money, but again, my statement stands. There are 8 Transformers films because they still make money.
Man, but this ain't about the Transformers. This ain't got nothing to do with the Transformers. We're talking about Thor Ragnarok, and there would have never, never been a 4th one if the Ragnarok wasn't as good as it was. There wouldn't have been a 4th one. They all
disagree with that.
I don't think there'd be. Thor: The Dark World fucking sucks.
I'll disagree with that, JB3. I don't think there would be a fourth one if Thor wasn't as good as he was in Infinity War and Endgame. I love Ragnarok. Like, it's hard for me to say
The
kick
only
it off
reason
the
we got
list.
that Thor was because of Ragnarok. That's the origin of that Thor.
All right. Well, let's let Ryan decide. We got 2 for, 2 against.
Okay, so just so I'm sure, this is just about whether or not WandaVision is kicked out. It's not a question of whether or not WandaVision is kicked out or Ragnarok is kicked out.
No, we're so we've got 2 that say Ragnarok
Rock.
is not top 7. We have 2 that say it is top 7.
So
So that's what we're
You're
saying. Do
bringing
you
the tie
think
up.
Ragnarok is top
Yeah,
should
7?
stay or should go?
Crap. Concern it. All right, so yeah, if I'm thinking top 7 of the MCU, and this top 7 has to incorporate everything that the MCU exemplifies. It has to show all the best parts of it. Then, God damn it. Yeah, I would kick out Thor before WandaVision. Only because if you really want to go ahead and see like the fun side of the MCU, if you want to see Thor at his best, or if you want to see Hulk better than he was, I feel like you can actually do that with Infinity War and Endgame and even the original Avengers, that you don't necessarily need Thor Ragnarok in there.
And I like that you brought up the Avengers, because that was going to be my next question. We've got 3 Avengers movies here on the top 10 list. I don't think we need 3 in the top 7 personally. I think you need, in my opinion, I think Infinity War and Endgame are up there. I would be okay leaving the Avengers outside the top 7.
I can cut Avengers.
I'm okay with that as well. Just looking overall at the movies we have, and yes, the first Avengers is historic because of its first time we're seeing a crossover movie, but we also have to look at the films. I like the first Avengers, but I think Infinity War and Endgame are top tier MCU movies.
See, that's where I would debate, because you want to talk about like how Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, they have that storyline. The storyline starts in Avengers. The whole concept of these people grouping up together. Without Avengers doing so well, you don't get Guardians of the Galaxy. Without Avengers doing so well, you don't think they had the idea of bringing in even more people into this little niche group that they have. You without Avengers, you don't get a phase 2 or phase 3 for there to be a cap off with Endgame. And plus, and this is just for layman purposes, unless you're someone who is heavily invested in the MCU, something like Infinity War or Endgame may be a bit too much. Maybe more so Infinity War, because Infinity War is just squishing it all together, whereas in Endgame it's kind of nicely separated and you're able to get a little bit of a better feeling for people. But if you want something that's like easily more palatable, if you want something that you want to go ahead and be like, hey, you want to get into the MCU, Avengers is something that you need to see, because then it sets you up for so much more down the line.
That's where I kind of disagree slightly. Yes, the first Avengers movie is compact enough to where you can watch it without watching the other movies, but I think you can watch Infinity War and Endgame back to back and just be fine without watching any other movie in the MCU. Because both those.
But would you need to watch Infinity War and Endgame back to back? I would almost say Infinity War should be dropped more so than the first Avengers. In fact, at that point, the Infinity War is kind of like the middle child.
But
I'm fine with that too.
Now you're starting to sway me, Ryan.
I mean, think about it. How you could easily watch Endgame with or without Infinity War, because Endgame itself, it starts off on that dour note, and you could easily just go online and get like a quick little update as to, oh, okay, so everyone grouped together, there was a snap, and stuff happened. But to start off on that down note and see just everything work its way up, it's such a crescendo at the end. It just feels so nice. And to have Avengers be the kickoff point of all that, with the Tesseract, with the first shot of Thanos, with the first use of the Mind Stone and Loki's scepter, all of that stuff. It's a nice bookend to each other. Infinity War is just more like, the cherry on top, but the other two movies are the cake and the frosting.
I think you swayed me.
Yeah, you're swaying me. I would be okay. As much as I love Infinity War, I would be okay keeping the first and the third, fourth Avengers on the list and kicking. I would have to put Infinity War at 8. Then I would put it at 8. JB3.
I say yes to the Avengers to stay. I say yes to Infinity War to stay, and I say yes to Endgame to stay. I don't care if all three of them are Avengers movies. They're all that good to me to be on that list, to be honest. I think WandaVision should go. I'm going to give the second no to WandaVision. I think the WandaVision should not be in the top 7. I think it's right up there. Like, I think it's top 10, maybe, because it technically wasn't part of my top 10, but Doctor Strange got cut, so I picked another one. But I think that I'm going to vote no, whoever's counting. No for WandaVision, yes for the Avengers, yes for all Endgame, yes for Infinity War.
See, I'm okay with WandaVision going too. So I mean, if we got one more saying that it's okay, that WandaVision is okay to be cut from the top 7.
You know what? I'm okay with WandaVision being cut.
Okay.
We're just all over the place.
But
We are, but we do have two cuts. We have Ragnarok. Sorry, JB3, and WandaVision.
And again, this is where I'm gonna vote for Infinity War. Again, Ryan really fucking swayed me over to that. I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. There's a lot of points Ryan brought up that I agree with.
I might be just completely off base here, but would anyone consider voting off Iron Man?
Actually,
Iron Man instead of one of the Avengers?
I mean, I'm fine with that. I like the first Iron Man movie, but I think if we're looking at historics, I think the first Avengers is slightly better than the first Iron Man movie, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have both Infinity War and Avengers above Iron Man.
So, I mean, I'd be okay with Iron Man going to be the last one off.
I'd be okay with it if we could all agree that it is number 8.
Yeah.
But it's so hard for me to say that, though.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay. Yeah,
like I said, if we're going to have like a top 7 that incorporates the best of the MCU in all aspects, you have to go with the one that started it all.
Iron Man's got to be on the top 7 at least. Even if it's number 7, it has to be on the top 7. I'll throw one out there. It's controversial, but I'll throw it out there. And this could easily be a number 8 for me. And I know this is some people's favorite, and it's one of my favorite movies also of all time. But as far as like the whole MCU, I'm gonna throw Black Panther on there for number 8, because as good as the movie as it was, it did a bunch for Black Panther in its own realm. It didn't really branch outside of Wakanda, and purposely, it's why it was so good. But at the same time, you're talking about very historic MCU as far as the full circle goes. I'll throw Black Panther as number 8, and not for any disrespect from Black Panther. It's just from that perspective. Like, it was more of just, I mean, you say that about Iron Man, but Iron Man is the OG. Black Panther, it built Wakanda up as this big thing, but as far as like, there's not much that it did as far as, like, for instance, like even Ant-Man, which we haven't even brought up, introduced the quantum realm. Kind of, it was really, really Doctor Strange, which should be there. Just saying. But
Get
but yeah,
over it.
yeah. There's certain things like I just don't feel like vibranium was already introduced. We already knew what it was. We got Killmonger, but we know what happened with him. Black Panther, he was already in Civil War in the big MCU story, but he didn't really join the story until after Black Panther when it came to like the big picture of things. So I can throw that in there.
Me
Well,
personally,
if you're gonna throw that, then I will throw this. I'd say if we need to kick one out, at this point, I've already made my case about Endgame and about Avengers, and whether or not we keep Infinity War in that case as well. But then does that mean we need a fourth team up film? I would say we could drop Civil War.
I'd be fine with that.
I mean,
To me,
the point of Black Panther, the reason I want to keep Black Panther is because, like I said, if this 7 is going to incorporate the MCU in a nice, tight little bundle and shows all aspects, then you have to show, a movie where, you have a good villain and the ideas that it brings with it. You have to show Wakanda because of how much of a stake it has in the entirety of the MCU, not just as a part of Earth. You have to show that there is more to superheroism than the Avengers, on the planet Earth.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm
I
fine
actually
with
do.
Civil War going.
I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes to Civil War.
I would rather Infinity War or Avengers go.
So would I, but like we stated at the beginning, it's a majority thing. We've got 3 that have said Civil War can go. And as much as it pains me, JB3, I now know your pain about your number 1 being kicked off. Civil War.
Again, guys, these are not bad things. These still make our top 10.
Oh.
Yes.
All these are great movies.
So now our top 7 is Endgame, Black Panther, Winter Soldier, Iron Man, Guardians 1, Infinity War, and the 2012 Avengers. So now we got to order them 7 through 1, which the way we debated just the 3 to kick off.
Oh boy,
we got time for this. I will go ahead. I think my number.
Look, this is what happens when you get like 5 guys together and you have like 20 some odd things to work with.
Yeah.
I think my number 7 out of these would be Iron Man. I
would counter, and I know I picked this movie, but I would counter Guardians over Iron Man for 7.
Okay.
I have Iron Man at 7.
Okay. JB3? Just what would you put 7? I just want to.
I know it's one of those 2. So,
okay.
Like,
no, like out of these 7, just which one would you put 7?
It's one of those 2, bro.
Okay, I
didn't. Brother, I'm telling you, bro, it's one of those specific 2 out of the 7. Because both got good points. I'm gonna say Guardians.
It's down to you, Jacob.
Well, I put up Iron Man. Ryan, what do you?
That's right, Ryan.
I would say Guardians at 7.
Guardians at 7. Okay, I can do Guardians at 7.
That's where it is in my top 10, so that works.
Guardians at 7. Iron Man at 6.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Yep.
I could get behind that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who wants to put up a number 5? I I could go any way with the
I
top
would
five
say
now.
2012 Avengers at 5.
I would say 2012 Avengers also.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, yeah.
That works. And then I'll say Infinity War next.
Infinity War at 4.
I think Winter Soldier should be number 4.
I would go Black Panther.
I'll go Infinity War. I'll go with Infinity War at number 4.
Yeah, I could say Infinity War too.
Okay.
I could see that.
All right, we got Infinity War at 4. And so now we just got
This is where the heated debate comes in.
I know.
I think we all are in agreement as to what number 1's going to be, but it's a matter of what's 2 and 3.
I don't know, man.
I would go 3. I would go 3 Black Panther.
I'd go 3 Winter Soldier.
I also have. Oh wait. Okay. So Civil War. I have 3 Endgame, but I don't think I'm gonna have any support on that one.
No, you don't.
See, here's the third way I think of it. They're both great standalone films. They both bring possibly 2 of the best characters, 2 relatively similar idealists, into the frame. And they both have, compelling arguments to be said.
The only reason why I would say Black Panther over Winter Soldier is the villain aspect of it. I think I can relate more to.
So it's like a Killmonger versus Pierce sort of thing.
Killmonger versus Pierce, yeah.
But see, for me, Pierce isn't necessarily the villain of Winter Soldier.
Right. It's the Winter Soldier.
I mean,
the Winter Soldier has got to be said too, because for the first 75, almost the whole film, he was considered the villain. I mean,
between the 2 of them, I gotta think of the movies as a whole, and I want to say Winter Soldier just has a better third act than Black Panther does. It finishes off nicer. While Black Panther does have more of like a symbolic message to tell, Winter Soldier, I think, is just the overall better laid out film.
Yeah, I can get down with that. I can do Black Panther number 3.
All right. Yeah.
So Black Panther 3.
It hurts, man. That's my number 1, but
Black Panther 3, Winter Soldier, and Endgame are our final 2.
Your number 1 got number 3, and a lot of ours got cut. And you feel that.
So now we got to figure out number 2, number 1.
Winter Soldier. It's easy. Number 2 is Winter Soldier.
Number 2, Winter Soldier.
I'd go number 2, Avengers Endgame. I think Winter Soldier overall is
no way.
Tighter story.
I'm gonna back Hunter on this one.
No way.
I would go Winter Soldier number 2.
Yeah, Winter Soldier number 2.
Ryan.
Yeah, Winter Soldier number 2.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Which means
basically what we're all saying is we really love that on your left joke. Because the top 2 films, it's like the beginning and the end of that thing.
Yep.
Endgame grabbed every single loose end that the other films made and caught them and brought them all together. I mean, so many things. Endgame was the end all be all. It didn't even have a
I'm not gonna lie. Endgame is a great movie. I just think Winter Soldier is a bit better story wise. But hey.
Yeah, I can agree with that, but I think in the culmination of the MCU up to this point, like Endgame just checks every single box that you wanted it to check. So
exactly.
I can definitely get behind it. So that actually did not take as long as I thought it would to come up with the order of the top 7. And so our top 7 is Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is at number 7. Number 6, Iron Man. Number 5, we have the first Avengers. Number 4, we have Infinity War. At number 3, we have Black Panther. Number 2 is Winter Soldier. And number 1, to probably nobody's surprise, is Avengers Endgame. wow, and it only took us a little over 90 minutes to come up with this list. I'm very surprised.
Actually, impressive time for 24 movies.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about all. Iron Man 3 didn't get brought up. Iron Man 2 didn't get brought up.
Ant-Man didn't get brought up.
Yeah.
Thor
for
2,
Hulk.
Ant-Man was a really good one. That
the
was
Incredible
up
Hulk
there.
didn't
Captain
get brought
Marvel.
up. Yeah,
Like
so
Ant-Man.
Marvel.
Ant-Man introduced a whole new deal.
No. I do not want anyone adding me. Don't start that, Hunter.
I will say this:
Well,
Captain Marvel for me was better the second time I watched it.
I may have to watch it a second time then. I mean, I'm gonna do it anyway, but
I was appreciating a lot of the more positives about it, like Clark Gregg, and Coulson and Sam Jackson and the Flurkin, like that whole throughout the whole movie, that was all great, all the way to the end.
It's also one of Stan's best cameos, man.
yeah.
You're a Kevin Smith fan.
I don't know, man. Here comes Chastity.
all right. Well, this
We
has
also didn't
been.
talk about Agents of Shield, which I guess was a little disappointing.
I've never
for me,
seen
I
it.
was the one that brought it up in conversation.
I absolutely 1000% loved Agents of Shield. I'm about to watch through a third time because my buddy just got done watching Agents of Shield. Shout out to Trav, and now he's going to watch it his second time with his girl because now she's watching it. So Agents of Shield is getting some love, and it's been a year, maybe 6 months since the season finale, the series finale. Agents of Shield was, to me, season 6 was a little but
But the fact that the show went
all
on for
worked.
that long, and there was always is it connected, is it not connected, who knows? But if nothing else, I'll give this hot take about the show. The love story between Fitz and Simmons, better than Wanda and Vision.
Oh, look how many years it started and went. Yeah, that was Fitzsimmons, man. All day, every day.
I'd love to see them make a comeback somehow in like the MCU as it is. If anybody needs redemption, as far as like minor characters, it's the cast of MCU, whether it be Clark Gregg in some capacity or just any of the other. Certainly Chloe Bennett, even though she's becoming a Powerpuff Girl, I still want to see Quake more.
He was awesome, man. And look, as far as the connectability, yes, it was connected, but it's always been connected because in the very end, like it was connected, and you're like, okay, it's not connected. It's not connected to the main story because they made their own time. They did their thing. So, and then at the end, without saying anything, spoiling too much, it kind of revealed it is all connected. It was just laid out in a different way.
I want to see them visited in Multiverse of Madness if that's possible.
I hope so. Even in Spider-Man.
Yeah, we got a lot more MCU coming out. Even as soon as this Friday, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Which I also wanted to point that out, considering we have Endgame at 1 and we have Cap Winter Soldier at number 2. We apparently love this whole Captain America microverse in the MCU.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me because
the Captain America trilogy is probably the best of the trilogies.
I concur.
I'm not counting Avengers because that's not like 4 movies. So
yeah, it's funny to me that I love the sequels as much as I do because the first Captain America movie is in the bottom half of my list. Probably the bottom third of my list, honestly. But that's just a testament to how good the MCU is.
That one guy that actually loves the original Thor movie, I think that movie is so underrated.
All right, well, with that, Hunter, it has to go.
No, actually,
I like the first Avenger. The first
got rescheduled, so I'm good right now. I got 3 hours.
The first Avenger, man. Just there's moments in that movie that will be remembered forever, like him taking the flag off the pole, him diving on the dud grenade, like everything that needed to be shown about Captain America before the serum was everything that we needed to know, and it's how the serum worked so well on him. Like, and it gets revisited so many times, like when Tony Stark was like, the only thing that's special that came out of you came out of a bottle. Like, that's not true. And the thing he said about Tony, even, like, what else do you have if you don't have that suit? Tony, he died for everyone. So
Yep.
I thought that was, to me, as an overall movie, sure, the first Avenger, it's probably not a top 10, but I think that there's top 10 moments surrounding and all throughout that film. Like, even in Endgame, the callback when they were like, when he did that big old speech, and they were like, man, he's really good at that. That was because in the first Avenger, he had to do all them speeches,
dude.
and it showed how nervous he was at first, and then he got really, really good at it, and that's why he was good at pep talks. Like, that all came from the first Avenger.
And it had a very good villain, Red Skull.
Yeah.
I think Red Skull was awesome.
He was.
Short-lived. I would like to have seen
Yeah.
the machinations of Red Skull more often in a modern times in the MCU rather than him being spaced off and becoming a ghost. But
Yeah.
hopefully that means, since we haven't had a Red Skull-like character in the majority of the films, once they start bringing in Fantastic Four and possibly Doctor Doom will take that mantle.
Yes.
There's just
All right,
a lot
yeah,
to
let's
look
do it.
forward to.
Yeah, make
That's
Doom
not much.
the Red Skull we never had.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up
Bring back Join McMahon.
was Iron Man 3. It's not a top 10. I wasn't even going to nominate it. But for me, like, that was probably my favorite Robert Downey Jr. performance in the entire MCU was in Iron Man 3, because you got more Tony Stark in that movie. And so that was something I could really appreciate about that movie.
I think a lot of people don't appreciate Iron Man 3 because of the Mandarin twist, which I hate it. I hate it too. But the fact that they do focus a lot on Tony and his PTSD and what he experienced in the Void in the Avengers, because what I love is we never really got to see what he saw. So we're living through him in Iron Man 3, and we know what he sees has to be fucking terrifying, because now that's gets stuff revving of like, all right, what is up there?
The only thing I wish.
It's kind of the entirety of what you get in phase 2. When you look at it as a phases, phase 1 is the buildup, and you see all these heroic characters come into being. Phase 2 is the darker side of heroism. You see the proverbial cracks in the armor. You see the trauma that they have to go through. You see it in Thor: The Dark World. You see it in Iron Man 3. You see it even in Winter Soldier with the ghosts of Steve's past coming back to haunt him. Phase 2 and in general is just the dark part of the MCU.
Yeah, it is. Definitely.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so weird that you have Guardians of the Galaxy in there, because that's like the power couple.
That fucks everything up.
You know what?
It's like leading all the way to Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is arguably the worst team up movie in the entirety.
Like,
but then you ended off with Ant-Man, which is probably one of the more colorful movies too. It's like it.
I'm kind of intrigued to watch Age of Ultron now after seeing WandaVision and seeing if it makes
if there's any like mess up in the continuity.
Yeah, or no, just to see if WandaVision kind of made Age of Ultron better. Because I thought Age of Ultron was okay. I didn't think it was horrible. But I'm wondering if watching WandaVision and then watching Age of Ultron would make a difference in the quality of the film.
For me, it did a lot. It went up pretty high. Probably at least 2-3 films jumped up.
Oh, wow.
See, that would be curious. So you did watch Age of Ultron afterwards?
Yep.
Interesting.
That happened to be right where I am in my chronological watch through.
Well, yeah, that's the benefit of WandaVision, I think. Even if you don't get to watch as much of the MCU, or even if you didn't watch Age of Ultron, you can watch WandaVision as a standalone thing, yes, but since it only really focuses more so on Wanda than anybody else, it's like either you like her or you don't. It's not like there's too much else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we could talk MCU all day, maybe 3 more hours of this, but
We've almost gone 2 hours.
I think we're going to cut it here. And you know what? Maybe we'll pick this conversation up at a later date. We'll see.
What if we ended up doing like a reverse? Since there's so many movies, where like the bottom 7
the bottom
MCU.
7?
The
Ooh.
slightly less awesome
Ooh.
MCU movies.
That
I
would
call them
be
bad.
Trash.
That will happen. I think that's got to happen. Maybe we can do that after Falcon and the Winter Soldier
Let's get this
is
crew
over.
back together. Make it like a part 2. This
There
was
we
in
go.
War.
I'm
We
ready
saw
for
Endgame.
There we go. So check back in a few weeks, and maybe you'll see the 5 of us again. Let's end it off here. JB3, where can people find you? JB3's got to bounce, so I'm going to let him go first.
You can find me at Combat Wrestling Trivia. It's trivia that's wrestling. If you know stuff about wrestling, and you would like to see how it goes, watch some of the matches, play along, see how you do. You never know. You can always play. It's fun.
Yeah.
Combat Wrestling Trivia on YouTube. Check it out. Right now, we're in the middle of the Clash of the Combatants. It's the G1 style tournament, and it is crazy. Where week 4 is going to start airing, not this Monday, but next Monday. We got week 4, and 7 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. You get 2 matches a day. It's just like if you know what the G1 Climax is in New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's exactly like that with a little bit of a twist.
How come week 4 is not airing this week?
Well, as a lot of people know, Matthew Rosa, he retired, and the title was relinquished. And instead of trying to make it, whoever wins the Clash gets the belt, I would like, as G1 style goes, I would like to have a champion in the tournament. So the week that we're not going to have the Clash, we're actually going to have Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, a 4-way middleweight match. And the winner of that match will join 7 other players in an 8-man gauntlet match that the next Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, maybe a little bit later.
Somebody might be in.
Yes, Hunter is in that match. Yeah, it's going to be an 8-person gauntlet match. The winner is going to become the brand new CWT Undisputed World Champion. So, and then we'll continue with the Clash after that.
Right. Ryan, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me Twitter, Instagram, and yes, even TikTok at Real Ordeal, which I know you do the whole Real Talk with the Real Deal. Well, my name is slightly different, so this way you can't trademark infringe me. All right. I'm McDowell's or McDonald's, depending on your preference. But you can find that at ReelOrdeal on those major formats. And of course, there's always Facebook where, you'll see a lot of the trivia stuff, whether it be Full Metal, Multiplex. You usually find it on there and on YouTube as well. You just Google the name and you'll be able to find something.
Jake, where can people find you? You got anything going on?
Nothing on the stack right this second. Always happy to talk nerd though. Jake Tato 18 on Twitter. I'm usually just talking Schmodown or Schmodown adjacent nerdery. Looking forward to hopefully getting some fan league matches in. I would like to throw my hat into the ring for some trivia. And then, like I said, always happy to talk about whatever. So, yep.
Well, if you want to do trivia, I might know a guy, and that guy might be next to me. Hunter.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah, I'm sure they're
That's
around.
entirely possible. There's somewhere. Yes, of course, right here on Nerd Entertainment Network, where we have the Nerdum division, we have the Movie Trivia Challenge, we have Real Talk with the Real Deal, and we have Sinister's Movie Night. Whole bunch of content, and I do have an official date for Movie Mayhem. It will be on April 30th. That is a Friday. So 4 huge matches, 2 title matches, 1 middleweight contenders match, and 1 Nerdum Iron Man match. So check out all that stuff, guys. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining me. As always, you can catch me here every Sunday. The time's flexible, but it will always be on a Sunday. You can catch me over at Combat Wrestling Trivia as well, part of the Clash. And it's just a fun time. Just fun talking nerd stuff, talking wrestling stuff, and just being a part of this community. And as JB3 says, if you could do anything else, just love everyone. Thank you. And if you're watching this on the replay, sorry it's so long.
Team Cap.
Have a good day.